Greetings viewers and welcome back. As the title suggests and I mentioned in the previous video, I'm going to be covering stripping paint from your miniatures. I also had somewhat of a request from Way Too Hell 10 regarding bringing old models back to life, so I'll kind of cover that in this as well and you'll kind of understand how that ties together. Because by now your collection's probably grown a little bit. You may have updated your painting techniques, gotten a little better, you like the way things are turning out, or you've completely changed the scheme of your army and maybe gone with a different faction or just in a different direction as far as your colors. So you'll have some models sitting around that obviously they're expensive, you don't want them to go to waste, you're not just going to throw them away because you don't like them anymore, and you want to repaint them but maybe you're not sure how to get all that paint off. I don't typically suggest going ahead and painting over what's already on the models, and the reason for that is because some of them are pretty detailed, and once you paint them, the paint kind of seeps down into the little notches and crevices and fills in most of that detail. So the more paint you put on there, the less of that detail is going to show, even if you're using washes. So I typically recommend going ahead and getting rid of all the paint if you can. If you were simply just updating your technique, or perhaps you're working on highlighting and using washes, that's pretty simple to just go ahead and cover up maybe the old scheme you have. I've done that with my Nurgle army. I basically took the same scheme I had previously and just covered it with a couple washes, and it ended up working out pretty well for me, so I didn't have much to do in terms of updating them or changing their look too drastically. I did, however, have some Thousand Sons that I really didn't like the way that I had painted them, so I went ahead and stripped them using the method that I'm going to show you, and I'll kind of show you what they ended up coming out like. This method doesn't necessarily get all of the paint off of the models to the point where they look brand new out of the package. So if you're planning on doing that and maybe selling them to somebody as new, I wouldn't recommend it. There is still a couple patches here and there of paint depending on how long you take to scrub, how long you soak them, what kind of primer and what kind of paint you used on the models before. But as you can see, this model is basically brought down to just the plastic and metal parts that are on here. Now there is a difference between the plastic and the metal, and I can tell you that the metal models like this Thousand Sun Sorcerer will actually work a heck of a lot better, and the paint basically just falls right off of the metal models. So if you have any of those and you use this method to strip them, you should have no issues at all. Just maybe a light scrubbing with an old toothbrush or a kind of a little brush like I use would do you just fine. You may have to scrub a little bit harder or leave the plastic ones to soak a little longer again, but you should achieve the same results and again be able to bring out some more of that detail and just start clean by painting over it. So again, I highly recommend doing it this way rather than trying to cover up or change too much on the models, because again, the more paint you throw on there, it may kind of make it worse and you're just building on top of it. So just go ahead and get rid of all of it, start fresh, you still have the same model. You may have an issue with some of the parts falling off as well. If maybe the glue gets loosened a little bit, you may have an arm or a gun or something fall off, which isn't exactly too bad. I had that happen with a couple of these guys, and basically what that allowed me to do was then scrub the chest on the model, because the gun wasn't held across their chest like that. So I was actually able to get more of it cleaned up than not with it still on there. So all I'm going to do today is I have this not really totally put together model. It's painted with some, I think, 2 coats of this purple paint, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop him in a jar that I have sitting here. I use a jar. It doesn't matter if you have any kind of container you want to put it in, or if you have a big enough container of the simple green, and let's say like you have only a little like I have left and you don't mind using just that, you can just drop it in the bucket. But I use simple green just because it's kind of easy to find and it works. There's a lot of different methods out there you'll hear people use. Some of them you can only use on metal models because it'll melt the plastic. Some of them are a little bit more toxic and they're not really good for you to breathe, so I try and stay away from all that. This is a pretty common house cleaner. You can find it at most retail locations, so I just go ahead and bought this, and this is what I use. And again, I'll just go ahead and get into doing that. Once I put the model in and let it soak a little bit, I'll come back. I usually let it sit for about 24 hours, so I'll probably come back tomorrow, bring the video back, and we'll take a look at it, and I'll show you what the end result will be. You can put the model in the jar first, or the container, or models, or however many you want to use. Usually I have a couple, but I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes for you guys. So then I'll just pour in enough simple green to cover the models that are in there. So as you can see, he's nicely covered in there. Kind of just let him float around in there. I'll come back every now and again. I just leave this on my kitchen counter, and I'll come back with like a little stick or something and stir it around every so often just to agitate it a little bit, kind of stir it up, make maybe some of the paint will flake off, and let the simple green get to maybe a lower layer of the paint. So I'll just kind of stir it up a little bit, leave it alone, let it sit for a couple more hours, come back, do it again. Nothing too fancy about this method. And then again, when it's done, I'm going to take it out and I'll just give it a nice little scrubbing under some warm water, and most of the paint should just come off. So once that's finished, I'll bring the video back and we'll take a look. Alright, so we're back. It's not quite been 24 hours, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be ready to go ahead and move forward with the next step here. So we got our jar here containing our simple green and the model with paint on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump it out and get the model out. Set that aside. So our model's out of the jar, so as you can see it still has plenty of paint on it, so it's not going to just melt right off, and when you pull it out of the jar it's going to be cleaned for you. You still have to do a little bit of scrubbing. So I've got my handy brush here, and all I'm going to do is go ahead and run some warm water, and as I'm running it under the water I'm just going to scrub with my brush just to knock off the paint, and the running water will just keep the stuff that I've knocked off out of the way so I can see what else is left and what I need to work on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll probably speed it up because you wouldn't be able to hear me over the running water anyway, and we'll take a look at what we get. And there you have it, a gray model. There is still a little bit of paint on there. Some of the areas behind the legs or inside the neck cavity are harder to get to. You can use just a small toothbrush or something to kind of get in those areas, or some kind of scraping tool should knock it off pretty easily. But as you can see, this simple green works. It works really well. Easy way to get your models looking back to their original form, so you can go ahead and start over and try painting again if you decide to change up your scheme. You can see some of the white primer down in the little crevices there on some of the details in the armor, like on the legs. Again, if you spend a little bit more time with maybe a smaller, more detailed scrub brush rather than just this beat up old thing that I have, you can probably get it all off of there, make it look a little bit better. But for all intents and purposes of redoing your army, this will work for you. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for more videos, and please let me know if there's anything you'd like to see or if you have any questions. Thank you.